understand what's up.
Do you want to know the worst part about dying? It's not the pain. Not the cold. Not even the regret. It's finally understanding who you were when it's too late to become who you should have been. I was cruel once. So cruel I can't even speak her name without choking on shame. And now I'm her. Living in the body I tortured. Dying in the skin I despised. Funny, isn't it? The universe has a twisted sense of justice. People kept asking, who are you? That's the thing. I've been asking myself that for 3 months. And I finally know the answer. I'm the girl who learned empathy through agony. I'm the monster who became human. I'm the princess who died as a servant and discovered she was always meant to be both. Tell her, my sister, tell her I finally understand. Tell her.
"3 months ago, Princess Zanna Valente was the most beautiful and cruel woman in the Western Kingdom. 3 months ago, Calantha was a servant, invisible, broken, and forgotten. 3 months ago they fell, and when they woke up, they weren't themselves anymore. This is the story of 2 souls trapped in the wrong bodies, of a curse that silenced the truth, of twin sisters who never knew they shared blood, of 2 alphas, one honorable, one brutal, who would love the wrong women for all the right reasons, and of a death that came 3 months too late to stop, but just in time to change everything. This is Soul Switch, and it begins with cruelty. Chapter 1. The Scarlet Dress. Castle Silvercrest's grand ballroom glittered with 1,000 candles, but the brightest thing in the room was Princess Zanna Valente's smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted wounded prey. Calantha. Her voice cut through the evening chatter like a crystal knife. "Come here." Every conversation stopped. Servants froze mid-step. Nobles turned to watch. They all knew what that tone meant. Entertainment. Calantha's heart plummeted into her stomach, but her feet moved on their own. They'd learned obedience long ago. She crossed the ballroom floor, her thin servant's dress a brown smudge against marble and gold. Acutely aware of every eye tracking her movement, she stopped 3 paces from the princess and bowed her head. "Yes, my lady." Zanna stood beside a table laden with gowns, silks and velvets in every color imaginable, each worth more than Calantha would earn in 10 lifetimes. The princess's ice-blue eyes sparkled with malicious delight as her fingers trailed over a dress of deep scarlet. "What do you think of this one?" Zanna lifted the gown, letting candlelight dance across its surface. "For tomorrow's engagement announcement, the Southern Alpha arrives at dawn." It was a trap. Everything with Zanna was a trap. "It's beautiful, my lady," Calantha said carefully, keeping her eyes down. "Beautiful." Zanna's smile widened. She turned to her companions, 3 young noble women who orbited her like moons around a planet. "She thinks it's beautiful. How sweet." Her voice dripped honey and poison. "Tell me, Calantha, have you ever worn something beautiful?" Calantha's throat tightened. "No, my lady." "Would you like to?" Warning bells clanged in Calantha's mind. I'm honored by the thought, my lady, but it wouldn't be appropriate." "I insist." Zanna thrust the scarlet gown toward her. "Put it on, right here. Let everyone see what beauty looks like on an Omega." The ballroom went silent. Lysandra Crescent Moon, pale and lovely as her name, with violet eyes that missed nothing, leaned forward with eager anticipation. "Oh, this will be delightful." Sylvie Ironwood, red-haired and anxious, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. She never did. Only Talia Emberley, tiny and dark-haired, looked away. She alone knew what it meant to climb from Omega to nobility and what it cost. "My lady, please." Calantha's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I'll soil it. My hands are—" "Are you refusing me?" Zanna's voice dropped to a purr. Somehow that was worse than shouting. "No, my lady." "Then put it on." Calantha's fingers trembled as she took the dress. The silk was softer than anything she'd ever touched. For one insane moment, she imagined what it would feel like to wear something so beautiful, to be seen instead of invisible, to matter. Then reality crashed back. She couldn't undress here, not in front of everyone, not with nobles watching like it was theater. Now, Calantha. Xanna's eyes glittered. Or would you prefer I have the guards assist you? Calantha's small, suppressed wolf whimpered inside her chest. Run, run, run. But there was nowhere to run in Castle Silvercrest. Not for an Omega. Not for her. Her shaking hands reached for the ties of her servant's dress. Stop! The voice rolled through the ballroom like thunder. Deep, commanding, unmistakably alpha. Everyone turned. A man stood in the ballroom entrance. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in travel leathers of forest green. Auburn hair caught the candlelight. Amber eyes blazed with barely controlled anger. Gunnar Nightshade, Alpha King of the Southern Kingdom. He wasn't supposed to arrive until dawn. King Aldrich Valente rose from his throne, surprise flickering across his face before he smoothed it into diplomatic welcome. Alpha Nightshade, we weren't expecting. Clearly, Gunnar's gaze swept the room, taking in the scene with predatory assessment. The cruel princess, the trembling servant, the gown clutched in scarred hands, the audience of nobles waiting for humiliation. His jaw tightened. Is this how House Valente welcomes guests? With public degradation. Xanna recovered first, her surprise transforming into a dazzling smile. Lord Gunnar, what a surprise. We were merely having some fun. Weren't we, Calantha? Calantha couldn't speak. Her voice had fled somewhere beyond terror. Fun. Gunnar descended the steps into the ballroom, his presence filling the space like a storm front. That's an interesting word for what I'm witnessing. He stopped 3 paces from Xanna, close enough to be confrontational, far enough to be respectful. Barely. This close, Calantha could see him properly. He was handsome in a way that had nothing to do with softness, all strong angles and controlled power. But it was his eyes that caught her. Amber gold, intelligent, and currently blazing with something that looked like righteous fury. The servant was about to model a gown, Xanna said, her voice honey-sweet. For the court's amusement. Was she? Gunnar's attention shifted to Calantha for the first time. Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them. Recognition. Maybe, though they'd never met. Or curiosity. Or the universe acknowledging a thread about to be pulled that would unravel everything. Calantha's weak wolf stirred. Not in fear. In something else entirely. Him, it whispered. Why him? My lord. Xanna's hand landed on Gunnar's arm, reclaiming his attention. Surely you don't object to a harmless bit of entertainment. I object, Gunnar said quietly, to cruelty masquerading as entertainment. He pulled his arm free. The servant may go. It wasn't a suggestion. Xanna's smile froze. For a heartbeat, something ugly flickered behind her perfect facade. Rage, humiliation. The fury of a predator denied its kill. Then it was gone, replaced by gracious surrender. Of course. Her voice could have cut glass. Calantha, you're dismissed. Calantha didn't need to be told twice. She thrust the scarlet gown back into Xanna's arms and fled, her face burning, her heart hammering, very aware of amber eyes watching her retreat. Behind her, she heard King Aldrich's booming welcome, Xanna's tinkling laugh, the court resuming its chatter as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The Southern Alpha had seen her, had defended her, had looked at her like she was a person. No one had ever done that before. In her tiny servant's chamber hours later, Calantha pressed her scarred hands to her face and tried not to cry. She didn't know why Gunnar Nightshade had intervened. Didn't know if it was principle or pity or mere chance. Didn't know if he'd even remember her face by morning. All she knew was that for one moment, one impossible, dangerous moment, someone had treated her like she mattered. And that would make tomorrow's cruelty so much worse. Because Zanna didn't forget. Zanna didn't forgive. And Zanna always got revenge. In the royal guest chambers, Gunnar stared out the window at the moonlit courtyard and tried to understand why his wolf was restless. He'd come early specifically to observe House Valente without performance or pretense. What he'd found was worse than rumors suggested. The princess was beautiful, cruel. Everything he'd been warned about and hoped wasn't true. The alliance was necessary. His kingdom needed the trade routes, the military support, the political stability. What he couldn't live with was the casual cruelty, the systematic degradation, the way servants moved like frightened mice, the way one small Omega with hazel eyes and hidden strength had looked at him like he'd performed a thaliacal by simply treating her as human. Forget her, he told himself. She's not your concern. But his wolf disagreed. And Gunnar had learned long ago that his wolf was rarely wrong. In Zanna's chambers, the princess hurled the scarlet gown across the room. He humiliated me. Her voice was ice and venom, in front of the entire court. For a servant, Lysandra reclined on a velvet chaise, examining her nails with deliberate calm. Then perhaps we should remind him why you matter, and why she doesn't. How? Zanna's ice-blue eyes snapped to her friend. Tomorrow, the forest tour to show him your lands. Lysandra's smile was all teeth. Accidents happen in the forest. Servants get lost. Forgotten. No one would even notice if one small Omega simply disappeared. Zanna's rage crystallized into cold calculation. Yes, Zanna, maybe we should... Sylvie began, but Lysandra silenced her with a look. Only Talia spoke, her voice quiet. She's just a girl. She's a problem, Zanna corrected. And I solve problems. She didn't know that in 12 hours she would fall. She didn't know that the girl she wanted to destroy would become her. She didn't know that the body she so carefully maintained would become her prison. All she knew was rage and wounded pride and the burning need to remind the world. Remind him, who held power here. Tomorrow, the forest. Tomorrow, revenge. Tomorrow, everything would change. But the Southern Alpha wasn't the only one watching. And the game being played was older and darker than anyone knew. Chapter 2, The Forest Trap. Dawn broke over Castle Silvercrest like a wound, red and bleeding across the horizon. Calantha woke to rough hands, shaking her shoulder. Up. Now. Mistress Greta, the head housekeeper, stood over her bed with a candle, her weathered face pinched with irritation. The princess wants you in the stables immediately. Calantha's stomach dropped. The stables? But I'm assigned to. Did I ask you to question? Greta's voice snapped like dry kindling. The princess specifically requested you. Something about preparing horses for the morning ride. Now move. Every instinct screamed danger. Zanna never requested her for outdoor duties. Never involved her in anything that might put her near guests or nobles. But there was no choice. There was never a choice. Calantha dressed quickly in her servant's dress. Plain brown wool that had been mended so many times it was more patched than original fabric. She splashed cold water on her face, tied her hair back with a fraying ribbon, and hurried through the still dark corridors toward the stables. The morning air bit at her skin. Frost clung to the cobblestones, turning them treacherous. In the east, the sky was shifting from crimson to pale gold, but the sun hadn't yet cleared the walls. The stables smelled of hay and horses and leather. Normally, Calantha found the scent comforting. Horses didn't judge, didn't sneer, didn't hit. But this morning, even the horses seemed nervous, stamping and snorting in their stalls. There you are. Calantha turned to find Lysandra leaning against a stall door, dressed in an elegant riding habit of deep purple velvet. Her pale blonde hair was arranged in an intricate braid, and her violet eyes gleamed with something that made Calantha's wolf whimper. "Lady Lysandra." Calantha bowed her head. "Mistress Greta said I was needed." "Yes, yes." Lysandra waved a dismissive hand. "We're taking Lord Gunnar on a tour of the western forests this morning. The princess wants everything perfect. That means the horses need to be groomed, the saddles polished." She paused, tilting her head. "Actually, there's something else. The princess's mare, Starlight, needs to be led to the forest clearing. You'll accompany us." Warning bells rang in Calantha's mind. Wouldn't one of the stable boys be better suited? "Are you refusing a direct order from the princess?" "No, my lady. Of course not." "Good." Lysandra pushed off from the stall door. "Saddle Starlight. We leave in 20 minutes." She swept away, leaving Calantha alone with her dread. The riding party assembled in the courtyard as the sun finally crested the castle walls. Zanna arrived first, resplendent in a riding habit of midnight blue with silver trim, her golden hair caught up in a net of pearls. She looked every inch the perfect princess, beautiful, poised, untouchable. Gunnar appeared moments later, dressed in simpler riding leathers in forest green, his auburn hair tied back, amber eyes alert and assessing. His wolf, Calantha could sense it even from a distance, was powerful, controlled, curious, nothing like her own small, suppressed creature. "Lord Gunnar." Zanna greeted him with a dazzling smile, accepting his help mounting her black gelding with practiced grace. "I hope you're prepared for beauty. The western forests are breathtaking this time of year. I look forward to it." Gunnar mounted his own horse, a massive chestnut stallion with fluid ease. His gaze swept the assembled party. Zanna, Lysandra, Sylvie, several guards, and his eyes landed on Calantha, standing at the edge of the group, holding the reins of Zanna's white mare. Their gazes locked. Calantha looked away first, heat flooding her cheeks. What was wrong with her? He was an alpha, engaged to the princess, so far above her station that they might as well be different species. But her wolf stirred, curious, interested. "Stop it," she told it savagely. "This is how we get killed. Why is the Omega coming?" Gunnar's voice cut through the morning air. Everyone froze. Zanna's smile tightened. "She's leading my mare to a clearing in the forest. It won't take long. Wouldn't it be more efficient to have a stable hand do that while we ride?" "The stable hands are busy preparing for the harvest festival." Zanna's tone brooked no argument. "Besides, she knows the forest paths. Don't you, Calantha?" "It was a test. A trap." "Yes, my lady," Calantha said quietly, keeping her eyes down. Gunnar frowned, but said nothing more. He didn't understand the game being played, but his instincts, honed by years of political maneuvering, told him something was wrong. "Shall we?" Zanna urged her gelding forward, and the party began moving toward the western gates. Calantha followed on foot, leading the white mare, trying to keep pace with the horses while staying invisible. Her thin shoes, meant for castle floors, not forest paths, were already rubbing blisters on her heels. Behind her, she heard Lysandra's laugh, high and cruel. The trap was closing. She could feel it. The western forest was indeed beautiful. Ancient oaks stretched toward the sky, their leaves turning gold and crimson with autumn's touch. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in shafts of dusty gold. Birds sang. A stream gurgled somewhere nearby. Under different circumstances, Calantha might have found peace here. But Zanna's party rode ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees like the cries of hunting birds. And Lysandra kept glancing back at Calantha with that terrible smile. They'd been riding for perhaps half an hour when Zanna called a halt. "There's a clearing just ahead," she announced. "Perfect for rest." The party dismounted, servants spreading blankets and unpacking baskets of food. Cheese, bread, cold meats, fruit, wine in crystal bottles. Calantha stood at the edge of the clearing, still holding the mare's reins, uncertain if she was supposed to stay or go. "Calantha." Xanda's voice was honey-sweet. "Tie the mare and come here." Dread pooled in her stomach, but she moved forward, tying the mare to a low branch. This was wrong. Servants didn't join nobles for refreshments, didn't approach their blankets. "Tell Lord Gunnar about the wolf packs in these woods," Zenda commanded. He was asking about the wildlife. Calantha's mind raced. She knew nothing about wolf packs here. She barely knew these woods at all. I don't know much about the packs, my lady. I'm rarely in the forest." "Really?" Xanda's eyes glittered. "But you said you knew the paths." "I know the paths, my lady. Not the—" "So you lied." The air went still. "No, my lady, You lied to me, in front of our guest." Xanda stood, her beauty transformed into something terrible. "You embarrassed me. Again. I didn't mean to." "You never mean to, do you? But somehow you always manage to humiliate me, to overstep, to forget your place." Gunnar stood. "Princess, this seems—" "Stay out of this." Xanda's sharp tone made even him pause. "This is a matter of discipline, of order." As her words gained momentum, so did her hand, moving so fast Calantha didn't see it coming. The slap echoed through the clearing like a thunderclap. Calantha's head snapped to the side, her cheek exploding in pain. She tasted copper. "Know your place," Xanda hissed. Gunnar moved between them, his stance protective, his alpha dominance rolling through the clearing. "Enough! This is wrong, and I won't be party to it." The silence that followed was electric. Xanda's face flushed with rage and humiliation. To be contradicted in front of her friends, her guards, a servant. "How dare you?" she breathed. "This is my kingdom. These are my people. You have no right." "I have every right to refuse to witness abuse." Gunnar's amber eyes blazed. "And if this is how House Valente treats its people, then perhaps this alliance was a mistake." Gasps rippled through the clearing. Xanda's hands clenched into fists. Her wolf rose to the surface, turning her eyes silver with fury. "Get out!" she snarled at Calantha. "Get out of my sight before I forget myself entirely." Calantha didn't need to be told twice. She turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, the mare's reins still somehow clutched in her hand, branches whipping at her face and arms. Behind her, she heard Xanda's scream of rage, heard Gunnar's sharp response, heard Lysandra's delighted laughter. She ran deeper into the forest, tears streaming down her face, her wolf howling in terror and humiliation. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away. Xanda stood in the clearing, trembling with rage, so profound she could barely see straight. He defended the Omega, the servant, the nothing. In front of everyone, he'd chosen that pathetic creature over her. Xanda. Lysandra's hand on her arm was gentle, but her voice was poison. "You know what you have to do." "What?" Xanda's voice cracked. "Follow her. Finish what we started. Teach her the lesson she needs to learn." "Lysandra, perhaps we should," Sylvie began, but Lysandra silenced her with a look. "This is necessary," Lysandra said. "For the order of things. For your pride." Xanda's wolf snarled inside her, demanding blood, demanding vengeance. "You're right," she whispered. Then louder, "You're right." Without hesitation, she shifted, a blur of white fur and rage, and took off into the forest after Calantha. "Wait!" Gunnar started forward, but the guards moved to block him. "Let me pass!" "I'm sorry, my lord." The captain's voice was apologetic but firm. The princess gave orders. A scream tore through the forest. High, terrified, unmistakably female. Gunnar's blood ran cold. He shoved past the guards with raw alpha strength, shifting mid-stride into his wolf form. Dark brown fur, powerful muscles, built for speed. He crashed through the forest toward the scream, his heart pounding, his wolf screaming one word over and over: protect, protect, protect. Calantha ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out. She collapsed at the edge of a ravine, gasping, the white mare pulling nervously at the reins still wrapped around her wrist. Below, a river churned over rocks. Not deep, but the drop was steep, 30 feet or more. She heard the snarl before she saw it. Turned. A massive white wolf with silver markings stood at the tree line, lips pulled back to reveal gleaming teeth. Beautiful. Terrifying. Zanna. Please, Calantha's weak wolf whimpered. Please don't. But there was no mercy in those silver eyes. Only rage. Zanna lunged. Calantha threw herself backward, but her foot caught on a root, and she tumbled over the edge of the ravine, the mare's panicked whinny filling her ears, both of them falling. Zanna tried to stop, but her momentum carried her over too, and for one suspended moment, two bodies fell through empty air, servant and princess, brown wolf and white, twin souls plummeting toward the rocks below. There was a flash, blinding, like lightning striking from a clear sky, a sound like the world cracking open, and then pain, so much pain, and darkness, and the sound of water rushing over stones. And then nothing. Gunnar burst through the trees, just in time to see two bodies hit the water with sickening splashes. No. He shifted back to human form, sliding down the ravine's steep slope, rocks tearing at his skin. He hit the water and waded toward the bodies, two women, one blonde, one brown-haired, both floating face down in the current. He grabbed the nearest one, the blonde, Zanna, and dragged her to the bank. She was breathing, unconscious, bleeding from a gash on her temple, but alive. He went back for the other, the Omega, Calantha, and pulled her out too. She was so small, so light. He laid her next to Zanna on the rocks and checked for a pulse. There. Faint, but there. Help! He roared back toward the forest. I need help. He didn't know what had happened. Didn't understand the flash of light, the crack like breaking magic. All he knew was that two women had fallen, and something fundamental in the universe had shifted as they carried the unconscious women back toward the castle. Gunnar couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had just begun, that whatever had happened in that ravine, whatever had caused that flash of light, it couldn't be undone. Chapter 3: The Awakening. The healing wing of Castle Silvercrest smelled of herbs and desperation. Two chambers, side by side, held two unconscious women. In one, the princess, surrounded by the kingdom's finest healers. In the other, the Omega, small, scarred, attended by a single elderly woman with gentle hands. King Aldrich paced outside his daughter's door like a caged wolf. Queen Isolde sat nearby, her face a mask of controlled worry, though her hands trembled in her lap. Every few minutes, a healer would emerge with an update. Stable, breathing, no sign of waking. Gunnar stood between both rooms, his wet clothes clinging to him, dried blood on his hands from where he'd scraped them on rocks. His advisor, Marcus, had tried 3 times to get him to change, to rest, to leave. He'd refused each time. My lord, there's nothing you can do here, Marcus said quietly. I can wait. For which one? Gunnar didn't answer, because he didn't know. His wolf paced restlessly inside him, agitated in a way he'd never felt before. Something was wrong. Not just the fall, not just the injuries. Something deeper. Something that made his instincts scream, danger and protection and confusion all at once. The sun climbed higher. Midday came and went. Servants brought food that no one touched. Lysandra, Sylvie, and Talia arrived, their faces painted with appropriate concern, though Lysandra's eyes glittered with something else entirely. Satisfaction, maybe, or curiosity about what she'd set in motion. It was late afternoon when the first scream came. From the princess's chamber, everyone rushed to the door. Healers burst inside. King Aldrich shoved past them, Queen Isolde close behind. Gunnar followed, his heart hammering. The woman in the bed, golden hair spread across silk pillows, ice blue eyes wide with terror, was sitting up, gasping for air, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Zanna! Queen Isolde reached for her daughter. Thank the gods you're... Don't touch me. The voice that came out was raw, panicked, wrong. The woman scrambled backward, pressing herself against the headboard. Where? What? She looked down at her hands again. Long fingers, smooth skin, no scars. She touched her face, her hair. No. No. This isn't. Darling, you hit your head, Isolde said, her voice soothing but strained. You're confused. Everything's all right now. All right. The woman's laugh bordered on hysteria. She tried to swing her legs out of bed and nearly fell. These legs were longer than she was used to. Moved differently. A healer caught her, but the woman resisted. I have to. She looked around the room wildly, taking in the luxury, the silk, the worried faces. This is wrong. This is all wrong. Zanna, please lie back down. Aldrich's voice carried alpha command, but it barely registered. I'm not. The woman's throat closed. She tried again. My name isn't, choking, gagging. The words wouldn't come. She clutched at her throat, eyes bulging with panic and confusion. Why can't I? What's happening to me? Someone get a healer's. Isolde's composure cracked, but the healers were already there, pressing the woman back onto the bed, murmuring soothing words, checking her pulse, her pupils. One forced a bitter tea between her lips. Drink. It will help with the shock. The woman fought at first, then drank, her ice blue eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal seeking escape. When her gaze landed on Gunnar, something flickered there. Confusion, fear, and beneath it all, a desperate plea for help that she couldn't voice. Everyone out, the head healer commanded. She needs rest. The trauma to her head was significant. Confusion is normal. Give her time. They filed out slowly, reluctantly. Gunnar was the last to leave, and as he reached the door, he glanced back. The woman in the bed was staring at him with an intensity that made his wolf whine. Not with desire, with something that looked almost like recognition. But that was impossible. In the corridor, Aldrich ran a hand through his graying hair. The healer said confusion is normal. After a head injury, yes, your majesty, the healer replied. Her memories may be fractured. Give her rest. By morning, she should be more herself. But Gunnar heard what went unsaid. Should be. Not will be. What about the other one? Lysandra asked, her voice carefully neutral. The Omega... Still unconscious, the healer said. We'll continue to monitor her. Is that really necessary? Lysandra tilted her head. She's just a servant. Surely the resources would be better used. She'll receive care, Gunnar cut in, his voice hard, the same as anyone else who fell. Lysandra's violet eyes narrowed slightly, but she smiled. Of course, my lord. How compassionate of you. The group began to disperse. Aldrich and Isolde to their chambers, the nobles to gossip elsewhere. Only Gunnar remained, standing in the corridor between two rooms, two women, two mysteries. He should check on the Omega, should make sure she was receiving proper care. But something held him back. Not indifference. Fear. Fear that if he walked into that room, if he saw her small body broken and pale, something inside him would crack open that he couldn't seal again. His wolf snarled at him. Coward, urging him to move. Gunnar started for the servants' door when a sound stopped him. Crying. Soft, broken, coming from the princess's chamber. He reverted. Against his better judgment, Gunnar pushed the door open slightly and looked inside. The healers had gone. The woman in the bed, Zanna, supposedly, sat with her knees drawn up, her face buried in hands that she kept staring at like they were foreign objects. I don't understand, she whispered to herself. Why can't I tell them? Why won't the words come? She looked up, and even from the doorway, Gunnar could see tears streaming down her face. Not the calculated tears of a manipulative princess. Real tears. Terrified tears. She saw him and froze. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. You, she finally said, her voice hoarse. You were there. In the forest. You saw what happened. I saw you fall, Gunnar said carefully, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Both of you. Both of... She shook her head violently. You don't understand. Something's wrong. Something happened when we... Her throat closed again. She gasped, clutching at her neck. When she could speak again, her voice was smaller. I can't explain. I can't make you understand. Then show me. Gunnar moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Show me what you mean. She stared at him for a long moment, then held out her hands. These aren't my hands. Choke. Gag. She tried again, differently. These hands are too smooth, too long. They should have scars. From burns. From work. From... She could say that much, apparently, as long as she didn't claim they weren't hers. Gunnar's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying, choke. I'm trying to tell you, gag. Tears of frustration now. I can't. Something won't let me. But you have to know that I'm not, that she's not, that everything is wrong. Who are you? Gunnar asked quietly. The woman opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. Nothing. Finally, she whispered, I don't know anymore. Before Gunnar could respond, a commotion erupted from the other chamber. Shouts. The sound of something crashing. He turned and ran, the woman in Zanna's bed calling after him, but he was already gone. The Omega's chamber was chaos. The single elderly healer was backed against a wall, her hands raised in a calming gesture. The woman on the bed, small, brown-haired, hazel-eyed, stood in the center of the room, trembling violently, staring down at her body like it was a snake about to strike. No, she was saying over and over. No, 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 this can't be. This isn't right. These aren't. Why am I? She caught sight of herself in a small mirror on the wall and lunged toward it. Gunnar barely caught her before she could smash it. She fought him, surprisingly strong for someone so small, but he held firm. Easy. Easy. You're safe. Safe. Her voice was different from what he remembered. Harder. More cultured. Edged with hysteria. Do you know what this is? Do you have any idea what? Choke. Gag. Her eyes bulged with panic as the words cut off. Gunnar's mind raced. Two women. Both confused. Both trying to say something they physically couldn't. Both staring at their own bodies like they were foreign. It was impossible. But his wolf knew. His wolf had known from the moment he'd pulled them from the water. Something had changed in that flash of light. Something fundamental. Something that defied every law of nature he knew. Listen to me, he said quietly, still holding the struggling woman. I don't know what happened, but I believe that something did. Do you understand? I believe you. She went still, stared at him with hazel eyes that held an intensity, a sharpness that didn't match the face. You believe me? I believe something is wrong, and I'm going to help you figure out what. For a moment, relief flooded her features, then suspicion. Why? Why would you help someone like this? She gestured at her body with barely concealed disgust. Because everyone deserves help. Gunnar released her slowly, regardless of who they are. She laughed, bitter, broken. You have no idea who I am. Then, softer, neither do I anymore. The healer approached cautiously. My lord, she needs rest. They both do. Whatever's happening, it won't be solved tonight. Gunnar knew she was right, but every instinct screamed that time mattered. That every moment lost was another moment these women remained trapped in whatever horror they were experiencing. I'll have guards posted outside both doors, he said. Not to keep them in. To keep others out. They're not to be disturbed except by healers. Understood? The healer nodded, clearly relieved to have someone taking charge. Gunnar looked at the woman in the Omega's body, small, scarred, but holding herself with a posture that didn't match her station. What's your name? Her mouth opened, closed, a sound of frustration. I can't, the words won't. It's all right. Rest. Tomorrow, we'll find another way to communicate. He left before she could respond, his mind churning with impossible possibilities. In the corridor, he nearly collided with King Aldrich. How is the Omega? Aldrich asked, though his tone suggested he was asking out of obligation, not concern. Confused, like your daughter. The healers say it's normal after head trauma. Is it normal, Gunnar asked carefully, for both of them to be confused in the exact same way? For both of them to seem wrong? Aldrich's ice-blue eyes, so like Xanna's, narrowed. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm observing. And I'm saying that something happened in that ravine. Something the healers don't understand. Magic. Aldrich scoffed. This isn't a children's tale, Lord Gunnar. Isn't it? Gunnar gestured toward both closed doors. Two women fall. Flash of light. Both wake up acting like they're someone else. Tell me that's natural. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in Aldrich's expression. Fear, or recognition, or both. Then it was gone, replaced by kingly authority. My daughter hit her head. She's confused. By morning, she'll remember who she is. And if she doesn't... Aldrich's jaw tightened. Then we'll deal with it. But I won't have you spreading panic with talk of magic and curses. Do you understand? It wasn't a question. It was a command. And despite his own alpha status, despite being from another kingdom, Gunnar recognized a wall when he hit one. Of course, your majesty. Aldrich nodded and swept away, but not before Gunnar saw his hands trembling. He knows something, Gunnar's wolf growled. He knows, and he's afraid. Alone in the corridor once more, Gunnar stood between the two doors and made a decision. Tomorrow he would get answers. Tomorrow he would make them communicate, curse or no curse. Tomorrow he would understand what the flash of light had done. But tonight he would stand guard, because whatever had happened, these two women, whoever they really were, needed protection. From what, he wasn't sure yet. But his wolf's persistent, insistent focus on both of them told him one thing clearly. Whatever had begun in that ravine, it was far from over. Inside the princess's chamber, the woman with golden hair and ice-blue eyes stared at the ceiling and whispered to herself, My name is Calantha. My name is Calantha. My name is Choke. Silence. Tears. Inside the Omega's chamber, the woman with brown hair and hazel eyes stared at her scarred hands and whispered, I am Princess Xanna of the Western Kingdom. I am Gag. Silence. Rage. And in the ancient crypts beneath the castle, a stone tablet that hadn't been read in 100 years glowed with faint silver light, its words pulsing with each failed attempt at truth. When blood turns upon blood, when cruel meets kind in the same flesh, the twins shall walk as one and other, until truth or death sets them free. The curse had awakened. The prophecy had begun. And no one, not the princess trapped in servant flesh, not the Omega trapped in royal skin, not the Alpha who'd begun to care for both, and not the kingdom that would burn before it was over, was ready for what came next. Chapter 4. The Impossible Truth. Morning came too slowly and too fast. Calantha, trapped in Xanna's body, had spent the night in a prison of silk and luxury that felt more suffocating than any dungeon. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the wrongness. The height, the weight, the way this body moved, breathed, existed in space. And every time she tried to call out, to explain, the curse choked her into silence. She'd tried everything. Shouting the truth, choke. Writing it down. The words blurred and rearranged themselves into nonsense. gesturing wildly at herself, and then at the other chamber. The healers thought she was having fits. Even thinking the words too clearly made her throat tighten, as if the curse could read her mind. When the servants came to dress her, these strangers who called her princess and treated her like royalty, she nearly broke down. They pulled her into gowns she'd only ever touched while cleaning them, arranged hair she'd only ever brushed for someone else, painted lips she'd only ever seen sneering down at her. The mirror showed Xanna's face, ice blue eyes, golden hair, flawless skin. Everything Calantha had ever been told was beautiful, powerful, worthy. She wanted to shatter it. "My lady, you're trembling," one servant said with concern. "Should we call the healer?" "No." The word came out sharper than intended. Xanna's voice, with all its natural authority, even when Calantha didn't mean it. The servant flinched, and Calantha felt a spike of horror. She sounded like her, looked like her, was becoming her. But she wasn't. She wasn't. Was she? A knock at the door. Before Calantha could respond, Queen Isolde entered, her face perfectly composed, though her eyes held something calculating. "Xanna, how are you feeling this morning?" The name felt like a blade. "I'm confused, mother." The word mother tasted like ash. Isolde studied her for a long moment. "The healers say that's normal. Your memories will return." "What if they don't?" Calantha's voice cracked. "What if I'm not? What if something's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Isolde said firmly. Too firmly. "You are my daughter. You are Princess Xanna Valente. You fell and hit your head. These confusions will pass." But there was something in her eyes. Something that made Calantha's new, powerful wolf, Xanna's wolf, huge and strong and terrifying, growl with suspicion. "She knows," the wolf whispered. "She knows something's wrong and she's pretending she doesn't." "I want to see her," Calantha said suddenly. "The Omega, the one who fell with me." Isolde's expression froze, just for a heartbeat, then smoothed. "Why would you want to see a servant?" "Because we fell together. Because I need..." Calantha searched for words that wouldn't trigger the curse. "I need to understand what happened. What happened is that you showed mercy to an incompetent Omega and nearly died for it." Isolde's voice hardened. "Let that be a lesson. Kindness to those beneath you is weakness." The words hit like a slap. That's what Xanna would have been told. What she'd been raised to believe. What she'd internalized so deeply that she'd become a monster without even realizing it. And now, Calantha wore her face. "I want to see her anyway," Calantha said, drawing on every ounce of courage, as part of my recovery, to remember what happened. Isolde studied her daughter's face, Calantha's soul behind Xanna's eyes, and something flickered there. Suspicion. But she nodded. "Very well. After breakfast. But briefly. You need rest." She swept out, leaving Calantha alone with servants who finished dressing her in a gown of pale gold that probably cost more than every piece of clothing Calantha had ever owned combined. When they led her to breakfast, Calantha nearly stumbled. The great dining hall. She'd served here 1,000 times, invisible and silent. Now she sat at the head table, with King Aldrich on one side and an empty seat for Gunnar on the other. The food was overwhelming. Platters of it, more than 10 families could eat. Calantha's stomach, this new stomach, growled with genuine hunger. Her old body had been half-starved. This one was used to excess. She reached for bread with her right hand, the hand she'd always used, and fumbled. The servants had always set plates on the right for the princess. Because Xanna was left-handed, Calantha switched hands awkwardly. Everything about this body was wrong. Different. A prison wearing silk instead of iron. "Xanna." Aldrich's voice drew her attention. "Lord Gunnar has requested to speak with you after breakfast. Something about the incident." Calantha's heart, this new, stronger heart, leaped. Gunnar. He'd said he believed something was wrong. Maybe he could help. Maybe. Of course, father. The word father felt like a betrayal to a parent she couldn't even remember. Somewhere, somehow, Calantha had been born, had been a child, had been taken from an orphanage, or so she'd always been told. But who were her real parents? Why had she ended up a servant? The questions swirled, but breakfast passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful bites and the constant, crushing awareness that everyone was watching the princess act strange. After, servants led her to a small sitting room where Gunnar waited. He stood by the window, his auburn hair catching the morning light, his amber eyes unreadable. The servants left them alone. Scandal, normally, but the healer had insisted the princess needed gentle questioning about the accident. The moment the door closed, Calantha sagged with relief. Thank the gods. You said you believed me. You said. I said I believed something was wrong. Gunnar's voice was careful. I didn't say I understood what. Then let me explain, choke. Calantha clutched her throat. I can't say it. Every time I try. Show me. Gunnar moved to a desk, pulled out parchment and ink. Write it. Calantha grabbed the quill with trembling fingers and wrote, I am not Princess Zanna. The words blurred, rearranged. When she looked down, the parchment read, I am Princess Zanna. No. She tried again. My name is Calantha. The words became, my name is Zanna. She threw the quill across the room with a cry of frustration. It won't let me. Can't you see? Some kind of curse or magic or even that made her cough. Gunnar was staring at the parchment, his expression dark. Magic, he said slowly. The flash of light when you fell. Yes. Something happened. Something switched, gag. Something changed who we, choke. She wanted to scream. All right. Gunnar held up his hands. Don't say it directly. Talk around it. Tell me, he thought carefully. Tell me what you remember from before the fall. Calantha took a shaking breath. I remember being in the servants' quarters, waking up on a thin mattress, rough dress, scared, always scared. She could say that much. Describing memories didn't trigger the curse, only claiming identity. Gunnar's eyes sharpened. Go on. I remember you. The ballroom. The scarlet dress. You stopped her, stopped what was happening. You were kind. Her voice broke. No one is ever kind. And in the forest. She was going to hurt me. Again. She always did. I ran. She chased. We fell. Calantha looked down at her smooth, unmarked hands. And then I woke up wrong. The silence stretched. Gunnar moved to the window, his jaw working. If what you're suggesting is true, and I'm not saying I fully believe it yet, but then where is she? In the other room. Calantha's throat tightened, just saying it. In the body that should be mine. The Omega. Yes. Does she know? She must. She has to be just as terrified. Calantha stood, this new body moving with grace she'd never possessed. That's why I need to see her. We need to figure this out together. Gunnar studied her for a long moment. Those amber eyes saw too much. Who are you really? I told you. I choke. No, not your name. Who are you? In your heart. If I stripped away bodies and faces and ranks, who is the person standing in front of me? Calantha's eyes filled with tears. Zanna's eyes crying Calantha's tears. I'm someone who knows what it's like to be invisible, to be nothing, to hurt and have no one care. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm someone who never wanted to be cruel, who just wanted to survive. And the princess? Who is she? Someone who never learned that hurting others hurts yourself too. Calantha swallowed hard. Someone who's about to find out. Gunnar's expression shifted, not quite belief, but something closer to it. I'll take you to see the Omega. But if this is some elaborate deception... It's not. I swear it's not. Then let's go. They walked through corridors Calantha had scrubbed 1,000 times, now seeing them from a different height A different perspective. Servants bowed. Nobles smiled. Everyone treated her with respect and fear. It felt like drowning. At the Omega's chamber, guards stood outside. They straightened when they saw Xanth's face, Calantha wearing it like an ill-fitting coat. "The princess wishes to see the servant," Gunnar said. The guards exchanged glances, but opened the door. Inside, the small room was plain. Nothing like the luxury Calantha had woken in. A single bed, a small window, a woman sitting on the edge of the mattress, staring at her scarred hands like they were weapons. She looked up when they entered. Hazel eyes, Calantha's eyes, met ice blue ones, Xanth's eyes. And in that moment, both women knew. "You," they said simultaneously. Then both clutched their throats as the curse activated, choking back the words they needed to say. Gunnar looked between them, his expression darkening. "You know each other." "Not exactly," Calantha managed. The woman in Calantha's body stood, and the posture was all wrong, too straight, too proud, too regal for a body used to cowering. "This is your fault," she snarled at Calantha. "You ran. You made me chase you. You." "I ran because you were going to kill me." Calantha shot back. "You've been trying to break me for years." "I was teaching you your place." "My place." Calantha's voice rose. Xanth's powerful voice, finally channeling Calantha's rage. "My place was being beaten and starved and treated like I wasn't even human. You're an Omega. That's what Omegas are for." The words hung in the air. Gunnar's sharp intake of breath was audible. And Calantha saw the exact moment the woman in her old body realized what she'd said. How she'd said it, with a princess's arrogance, a princess's cruelty, a princess's absolute conviction in the hierarchy. "Who are you?" Gunnar asked quietly, dangerously, looking at the woman in the Omega's body. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "I am choke. My name is Gag." Desperation flooded her features. "Why can't I say it? Why can't I tell you who I am?" "Because you're cursed," Calantha said flatly. "We both are. And until we figure out how to break it, we're stuck." Stuck. The woman's voice rose to a shriek, high, panicked, so at odds with the small, weak body producing it. "I am not stuck as you. I refuse. I am Princess Xantha Valente. I am violent choking." She doubled over, gasping. Calantha felt a twisted satisfaction. Now you know what it's like, wanting to scream who you are and having the words die in your throat. Xantha, in Calantha's body, looked up with pure hatred. "This is your fault." "My fault?" "Yes. If I knew best, I should have done worse." "You did." Calantha gestured at their swapped bodies. "You did this. Your cruelty did this." "Stop." Gunnar's voice cut through the argument like a blade. Both women fell silent. "I don't fully understand what's happening here, but I understand this. 2 women fell, and 2 women woke up wrong. Whether it's magic or curse or divine punishment, you're both trapped." He looked between them. "And you're going to have to work together to survive it." "Work together?" Xantha spat. "With her?" "Yes." Gunnar's amber eyes were hard. "Because right now you're an Omega. And if people realize you're acting above your station, they're going to treat you exactly how you treated her." The blood drained from Xantha's face, Calantha's face, pale and terrified. "And you," Gunnar turned to Calantha, "you're the princess now, which means everyone expects you to act like her. If you show too much kindness, too much weakness, they'll wonder why. And if they investigate too closely, they'll discover the curse," Calantha finished. "And then what? Kill us for being unnatural." "Possibly." Gunnar's jaw tightened. "Which is why you both need to learn to play your parts. Quickly." "I don't know how to be a princess," Calantha whispered. "And I refuse to be an Omega." Xantha snarled. "Then you'll both die," Gunnar said bluntly. Because from what I can see, this curse won't let you tell the truth, won't let you prove who you are. So either you adapt or you suffer. Those are your choices. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Finally, Calantha spoke. How long do we have to pretend? Until we figure out how to break the curse. Gunnar moved to the door. I'll research. Quietly. But in the meantime, he looked at Zanna. You're going to learn to bow your head and say yes, my lady. Zanna's hands clenched into fists. Calantha's small, scarred fists. Never. Then you'll be beaten. Starved. Treated exactly how you treated her. Gunnar's voice was merciless. Is that what you want? The woman said nothing, but her eyes blazed with impotent rage. Gunnar turned to Calantha. And you're going to learn to hold your head high and command respect. Can you do that? Calantha thought of every time she'd been hit, humiliated, broken. Thought of the girl, the princess, who'd done it all with a smile. I can try. Good. Gunnar opened the door. We start tomorrow. Tonight, both of you rest. Think. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that there's a way out of this. He left, the door closing behind him with a heavy finality. Calantha and Zanna stood facing each other. Souls in the wrong skins. Enemies bound by a curse neither understood. This is temporary, Zanna finally said, her voice low and venomous. I will find a way back to my body. And when I do, you'll pay for this. I didn't do this, Calantha said wearily. You did. Your cruelty. Your pride. Whatever magic or curse exists, it happened because of you. Lies. Is it? Calantha moved to the door. We fell together. The flash happened when we touched. When your violence met mine, she stopped. The curse wouldn't let her finish that thought. But she didn't need to. They both knew. Blood had turned upon blood. Cruel had met kind in the same flesh. And now the twins, though neither knew that truth yet, walked as each other, until truth or death would set them free. Calantha left the room, trying to walk with Zanna's grace and failing. Behind her, she heard a crash, something thrown against a wall. A scream of rage and frustration. And then, quieter, the sound of crying. Both women, in separate rooms, wept for the bodies they'd lost. The lives they'd never get back. The curse that bound them tighter than any chains. Tomorrow they would learn to pretend. But tonight they grieved. Chapter 5. Learning the Lie. 3 days. That's how long King Aldrich gave them to recover before resuming normal duties. 3 days for Calantha to learn to be a princess, and for Zanna to learn to be invisible. 3 days that felt like 3 years. Gunnar became their unlikely teacher, meeting with each woman separately, trying to prepare them for the roles they'd been forced into. With Calantha, he was patient but firm. Head up, he instructed as they walked through the castle gardens in the early morning, away from prying eyes. Shoulders back. You're not trying to disappear anymore. Calantha straightened, but everything about this body still felt wrong. Too tall. Too graceful. Too much. I can't do this. Everyone's going to know. They won't. People see what they expect to see. Gunnar stopped, turning to face her. The princess is cruel. So be cruel. I don't know how to be cruel on purpose. Yes, you do. You've seen it your whole life. You know exactly what she does. What she says. How she looks at people like they're beneath her. His amber eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to become her. I'm asking you to survive. Calantha swallowed hard. What if I can't? What if I'm too kind and they realize? Then be selectively cruel. To people who deserve it, and kind only when no one else can see. He gestured back toward the castle. Lysandra, for instance. She suspects something's wrong. I've seen the way she watches you. She does. Panic rose in Calantha's chest. She thinks you've changed since the fall. Softer. Weaker. Gunnar's voice hardened. You need to prove her wrong. Find a servant. A random one. Humiliate them publicly. Show Lysandra that you're still the princess she knows. The suggestion hit Calantha like a physical blow. You want me to hurt someone? To become what she was? I want you to survive, Gunnar corrected. And if that means playing a role you hate, then yes. One servant suffers now, or you both get discovered and likely executed for witchcraft. Choose. Calantha closed her eyes. He was right. She knew he was right. But the thought of deliberately causing pain, becoming the monster she'd feared, made her stomach turn. I can't. You can. And you will. Gunnar's voice softened slightly. Listen to me. This isn't about becoming her. It's about wearing her mask long enough to survive. Underneath, you're still you. That matters. Does it? Calantha looked down at her smooth, unmarked hands. How long before the mask becomes the face? Gunnar didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Identity wasn't just soul. It was also the body you wore, the way people treated you, the power you held or didn't. The longer Calantha lived as Zanna, the more she'd become her. And the same was true in reverse. In the servants' quarters, Gunnar faced a very different challenge. Zanna, trapped in Calantha's small, scarred body, stood in the corner of the cramped room she now shared with 3 other Omegas, her posture rigid with fury. I will not bow, she hissed, keeping her voice low so the others wouldn't hear. I will not scrape and grovel and call anyone my lady. I am the princess. You were the princess, Gunnar corrected. Now you're a servant, and if you don't learn to act like one, you'll be whipped, or worse. Let them try. Her eyes, Calantha's soft hazel eyes, blazed with silver as her wolf rose to the surface. Except it didn't. The wolf that answered her call was small, weak, suppressed. The horror on her face was absolute. My wolf, she whispered. Where is my wolf? Gone. Gunnar's voice held no sympathy. Or rather, you have a different one now. The body's wolf. And this body's wolf has been suppressed for years. Broken. Just like its owner. Zanna staggered backward, hitting the wall. No. No. This can't be. I need my wolf. I need my power. You don't have it anymore. Gunnar crouched to her level, eye to eye now, since this body was so much shorter than his. This is what you did to her. You took her power, suppressed her wolf, made her small and weak and afraid. Now you get to feel it. This is torture. This is justice. Gunnar stood. And if you want to survive long enough to break the curse, you'll learn humility. Fast. I don't know how. The confession burst out of her, raw, terrified, real. I was raised to command, to dominate, to never show weakness. How am I supposed to become this? For the first time, Gunnar felt something almost like pity. She was terrible, cruel, everything he despised. But she was also completely unprepared for what was coming. You watch, he said. You learn. The other servants in this room, study them. How they move, how they speak, how they make themselves small. He paused, and you pray that your arrogance doesn't get you killed before you figure it out. He left her there, trembling with rage and fear in equal measure. The first test came that evening at dinner. Calantha sat at the high table in a gown of deep emerald, her golden hair arranged in an elaborate style that took 3 servants to create. Around her sat the nobles of the Western Kingdom, Gunnar to her right, Lysandra across from her, Sylvie and Talia nearby. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting to see if the princess had recovered. Lysandra smiled, sharp as broken glass. Zanna, darling, you seem so quiet tonight. Not like yourself at all. Trap. Obvious trap. Calantha forced herself to meet those violet eyes. I'm tired, Lysandra. Nearly dying tends to have that effect. Of course. How terrifying that must have been. Lysandra's voice dripped false sympathy. Falling with that Omega. Is she recovering as well? I heard she's back to servant duties. There. The opening. Gunnar had warned her this would come. Calantha's throat tightened. She thought of Zanna, trapped in that body, probably terrified, probably suffering. Despite everything, despite the cruelty, Calantha felt sympathy. But sympathy would get them both killed. I wouldn't know, Calantha said, her voice cold. I don't concern myself with servants. Really? Because I heard you asked to see her. After you woke up. Lysandra tilted her head. Why would you do that? The table went quiet. Everyone listening now. This was the moment. Prove she was still the princess, or confirm Lysandra's suspicions. Calantha felt Gunnar's leg press against hers under the table. A warning. Do it. She thought of every cruel word Zanna had ever said to her. Every sneer. Every casual dismissal of her humanity. And she channeled it. I wanted to make sure she understood her place, Calantha said, her voice carrying across the table. She caused the accident with her clumsiness. I wanted to ensure she'd been properly disciplined. Lies. All lies. But they tasted like ash in her mouth. Lysandra's smile faltered slightly. And was she? She will be. Calantha picked up her wine glass with steady fingers. In fact, I think I'll attend to it personally tomorrow. A public reminder of what happens when servants overstep. The words made her want to vomit. But around the table, nobles nodded approvingly. This was the princess they knew. Cruel, petty, obsessed with hierarchy. Lysandra's eyes narrowed, but she leaned back, apparently satisfied. How delightfully like you, darling. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Calantha smiled when expected, laughed at appropriate times, and died a little inside with each cruel word that came too easily from Zanna's mouth. When it was finally over, she fled to her chambers and locked the door. Only then did she allow herself to break, collapsing against the silk-covered wall, tears streaming down this stranger's face. I'm becoming her, she whispered to the empty room. Gods help me, I'm becoming her. A soft knock at the door. It's me, Gunnar's voice. Calantha opened it. He slipped inside, quickly, closing it behind him. You did well, he said. I'm a monster. You're surviving. He moved to pour her wine from the decanter, handed it to her. And you convinced them. That's what matters. I promised to hurt her tomorrow. Publicly. How is that surviving? How is that not just perpetuating the same cruelty? Because you're going to warn her first. Gunnar's amber eyes were serious. And you're going to stage something that looks worse than it is. A performance. For Lysandra and the others. You want me to trick them. I want you both to live. He set down his own glass. This curse, whatever it is, won't last forever. We'll find a way to break it. But until then, you have to play the part. Both of you. Calantha sank onto the edge of the enormous bed, Zanna's bed. What if we can't? What if we're stuck like this forever? Then you'll adapt. Gunnar moved to the window, looking out over the moonlit kingdom. I've been thinking about the flash. The moment you fell. Magic doesn't just happen. There's always a source. What kind of source? Old magic. Bloodline curses. Prophecies. He turned back to face her. Has your family, the princess's family, has there ever been mention of curses? Old magic. Calantha shook her head, then paused. Wait, there was something. Years ago, I was cleaning the king's study, and I saw a book. Old. Leather-bound. It had a symbol on the cover. 2 wolves, circling each other. Gunnar's expression sharpened. What else? I only glimpsed it. The king came in, and I had to leave. But she closed her eyes, trying to remember. There were words. In the old language. Something about twins and blood, and her throat closed. The curse, blocking even memories that came too close to the truth. Twins, Gunnar repeated softly. That's the second time someone has mentioned twins in connection with this family. Who else mentioned it? one of the healers. She's old, remembers things. She said something strange when I asked about the princess's birth. Said there were complications, that the queen was in labor for 2 days. He met Calantha's eyes. No one labors that long for a single child. The implication hung in the air like smoke. You think there were 2 babies, Calantha whispered. I think it's possible. And if there were, what happened to the second one? Calantha's heart pounded. The orphanage. They said I was taken from an orphanage when I was an infant, that they needed servants, and I was available. Convenient story. Gunnar's voice was hard. Too convenient. What if you weren't taken from an orphanage? What if you were taken from the royal birthing chamber? That's insane. Why would they give away their own child? Because she was an Omega. The pieces were falling into place in Gunnar's mind. Think about it. The royal family, obsessed with power, with hierarchy, with bloodlines. They have twins. One is an alpha. Perfect. Powerful. Everything they want. The other, he gestured at Calantha's current body, is an Omega. Weak. Shameful. A stain on their perfect image. So they what? Just threw her away. They kept her close. Suppressed her wolf. Made her servant. Gunnar's amber eyes blazed. They could control the narrative that way. No scandal. No questions. Just a servant girl who happened to look similar, if anyone ever noticed. Which no one would, because who looks at servants? Calantha felt like she'd been struck. You're saying you think Xanna and I are sisters, twins, possibly. Gunnar moved closer. It would explain the curse. Why it activated when you fell together. Blood magic is the strongest kind. And if there was a prophecy, a curse placed on the bloodline, it would trigger when the twins came together, Calantha finished. When blood met blood. They stared at each other, the enormity of it settling over them. If this is true, Calantha said slowly, then my entire life has been a lie. I'm not some orphan. I'm a princess. I'm her sister. And she's been tormenting her own flesh and blood for years, never knowing. Does she know? Now, does she suspect? I don't know, but we need to find out. Gunnar moved to the door. Tomorrow, when you discipline her, you'll get a chance to talk. Briefly, privately. Tell her what we've discovered. See how she reacts. And if she doesn't believe me, then we keep searching. But if I'm right, if you're twins, then breaking this curse might require both of you to accept the truth. He paused at the door. Blood magic binds, but blood magic can also free. If you're sisters, that bond might be the key. After he left, Calantha sat alone in the princess's chambers, her mind spinning. A sister. She might have a sister. The woman who'd tortured her, humiliated her, tried to kill her was her twin. The irony was so dark it was almost funny. Almost. Across the castle, in the cramped servants' quarters, Xanna lay on a thin mattress that smelled of other people's sweat and listened to the sounds of Omegas sleeping around her. Her body, this weak, small, pathetic body, ached. She'd been assigned to kitchen duty that evening. Scrubbing pots, hauling water. Tasks that would have taken her old body minutes had taken hours. Her hands were raw. Her back screamed. Her pride was shattered. This was what she'd inflicted daily. For years. And now she understood. The hatred. The exhaustion. The soul-deep weariness of being treated as less than human. She wanted to rage. To scream. To demand her old life back. But when she opened her mouth, all that came out was a sob. Soft. Broken. The sound of someone who'd finally realized the cost of her cruelty. In the darkness, Talia, who shared this room, stirred. Calantha? Are you crying? Xanna froze. They thought she was Calantha. They all did. I'm fine, she whispered, trying to make her voice small, unthreatening. No, you're not. Talia sat up, her dark eyes gleaming in the moonlight. The fall was terrifying. You're allowed to be scared, Scared. Xanna wanted to laugh. She was terrified. More terrified than she'd ever been in her life of luxury and power. It's just, she searched for words that wouldn't trigger the curse. Everything feels wrong. Like I'm in the wrong place. The wrong life. I know that feeling. Talia's voice was soft. I used to be where you are. An omega. Lowest of the low. It took me years to claw my way up to where I am now. And even then, I'm never really safe. One mistake, and I could fall right back. Xanna stared at her in the darkness. Talia, who she'd always seen as a success story. Someone who'd transcended her birth, rank, through beauty and cunning. How did you do it? The question came out before Xanna could stop it. How did you survive? I learned to be what they wanted me to be. I studied the alphas and betas, learned how they moved, how they spoke, how they thought. Talia paused, and I never, ever let them see me break, no matter how much it hurt. The advice was eerily similar to what Gunnar had said. Did it work? Xanna asked, Are you happy now? Long silence. Then, quietly, I'm alive. Sometimes that's enough. Talia lay back down, and soon her breathing evened into sleep. But Xanna stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of this weak body and the even heavier weight of understanding. She'd done this, created this hell, and now she was living in it. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that she was starting to understand why Calantha had looked at her with such hatred. Because this wasn't living, it was surviving. And surviving was exhausting. As dawn crept through the small window, painting the servants' quarters in weak gray light, Xanna made a decision. She would survive. She would learn this role, no matter how much it killed her pride. Because somewhere, in some way, there had to be a way back to her body. And when she found it, when she was princess again, she would remember this. Every moment, every humiliation. And maybe, just maybe, she would be different. Or maybe she'd just make sure no one could ever do this to her again. She didn't know which. But she knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, when Calantha came to publicly discipline her, one of them would break. And Xanna was determined it wouldn't be her, even if it killed her. Chapter 6. The Performance. The castle courtyard at midday was packed. Word had spread that Princess Xanna would be personally disciplining a servant, the same one who'd caused the accident that nearly killed her. Nobles gathered to watch. Servants stood at the edges, grateful it wasn't them, horrified it was anyone. Calantha stood on the raised platform, wearing Xanna's face and a gown of ice blue silk that matched her borrowed eyes. Below, guards dragged forward a small figure in a brown servant's dress. Xanna, in Calantha's body, looking so small and fragile that Calantha's heart cracked. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. But Lysandra watched from the front row, violet eyes sharp and assessing. King Aldrich observed from a balcony above, and Gunnar stood off to the side, his face carefully neutral, but his amber eyes holding Emmy Sylvie. Do what you must. The guard forced Xanna to her knees. Her head was bowed, but Calantha could see the tension in her shoulders, the barely contained rage. This servant, Calantha began, her voice carrying across the courtyard, Xanna's voice commanding and cold, caused an accident that nearly cost me my life. Murmurs of agreement from the nobles. Servants shifted nervously. Such negligence cannot go unpunished. Xanna's hands clenched into fists. Calantha saw it, saw the moment her twin, her sister, if Gunnar was right, wanted to spring up and fight. Don't, Calantha prayed silently. Please don't. However, Calantha continued, I am feeling merciful today. The accident caused me injury, yes, but it also taught me something valuable. Lysandra's eyebrows rose. This wasn't the script she'd expected. It taught me, Calantha said carefully, that servants are fragile creatures. Break them too badly, and they become useless. And useless servants serve no purpose. It was a careful line, cruel enough to sound like Xanna, pragmatic enough to avoid actual violence. So instead of a whipping, Calantha descended the platform steps, moving closer to the kneeling woman. I will assign additional duties: kitchen work, stable work, anything that requires hard labor and long hours, until I decide she's learned her lesson. It was punishment, yes, but not the public beating Lysandra had clearly hoped for. Calantha crouched down, bringing herself eye level with Xanna. To the watching crowd, it looked like the princess delivering a final warning. But this close, Calantha could whisper, "We need to talk. Tonight, Gunnar knows how to arrange it." Xanna's hazel eyes, Calantha's eyes, met hers with confusion and fury. "I've learned something," Calantha continued, still whispering, "about why this happened, about who we really are to each other." "I don't want to hear anything from you," Xanna hissed back, her voice barely audible. "You will, because it's the only way we survive this." Calantha stood, raising her voice to normal volume. "Do you understand your punishment, servant?" The words tasted like poison. Xanna's jaw tightened. For a long, dangerous moment, Calantha thought she wouldn't answer. Thought she'd break character and damn them both. Then, barely above a whisper, "Yes, my lady." The words clearly cost her everything. "Good." Calantha turned to the guards. "Return her to the kitchens, and make sure she earns her keep." As they hauled Xanna away, Calantha caught one last glimpse of her face. Not hatred this time. Something else. Something that might have been the beginning of understanding. The crowd dispersed, nobles muttering about the princess's unexpected mercy, servants exhaling with relief. Lysandra approached, her smile sharp. "That was interesting. Not quite what I expected from you." "I'm evolving," Calantha said, matching her tone. "Nearly dying changes a person." "Does it?" Lysandra tilted her head. "Or does it reveal who they really were all along?" "Are you questioning me, Lysandra?" "Never." But those violet eyes said otherwise. "I'm simply observing. You've been different since the fall. Softer. Some might say weaker. And some might find themselves missing my friendship." Calantha shot back, channeling every ounce of Xanna's casual cruelty. "Do you really want to test me right now?" For a heartbeat, they stared at each other. Then Lysandra smiled, sharp, predatory. "Of course not, darling. I'm merely concerned for you. We're friends, after all." "Then act like it." Calantha swept past her, praying her legs wouldn't shake, praying she'd pulled off the performance. Behind her, she heard Lysandra's soft laugh. Not convinced, but also not certain enough to act. Yet, in the kitchens, Xanna scrubbed pots with vicious intensity, her hands. These weak, scarred hands, screaming in protest. Around her, other servants worked in silence, stealing glances but not speaking. They'd all seen the punishment in the courtyard. They all knew she was being made an example of. What they didn't know was that she'd been making examples of them for years. "Here." A voice beside her. "Talia," holding out a clean cloth. "For your hands. They're bleeding." Xanna looked down. Sure enough, the rough work had opened old scars. Blood mixed with dishwater. She hadn't even noticed the pain. So focused on her rage that physical discomfort barely registered. "Thank you," she said, the words foreign on her tongue. Talia studied her with those dark, knowing eyes. "You held up well out there. In the courtyard. I thought for sure you'd break." "I don't break," Xanna said automatically. "Everyone breaks eventually." Talia's voice was soft. "The trick is making sure you break in private where no one can see." She moved away, back to her own duties, leaving Xanna alone with the truth of those words. Everyone breaks eventually. Was that what had happened to Calantha? The real Calantha, whose body she now wore. Had she broken so many times that she'd learned to hide the cracks? Xanna's hands trembled as she wrapped them in the cloth. Not from pain. From something else. Something that felt dangerously like guilt. That evening, After the kitchens had been scrubbed and the servants dismissed, Gunnar appeared at the servants' entrance. "You," he said, pointing at Zanna. "The princess wants to see you." Terror and hope warred in her chest. This could be a trick, a trap, another humiliation. But it could also be answers. She followed him through the castle's hidden possibilities, the one servants used to move unseen, up winding stairs, through corridors she'd never known existed, despite living here her whole life. Finally, they reached a small room, a storage chamber, maybe, or a forgotten study. And inside, waiting in the lamplight, was Calantha, wearing Zanna's face, standing with Zanna's posture, looking so much like the princess that for a disorienting moment, Zanna felt like she was looking into a warped mirror. "You came," Calantha said. "Did I have a choice?" Zanna's voice dripped bitterness. "No, but neither did I when you summoned me 1,000 times before." Calantha gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to talk. I don't take orders from servants." "You are a servant now." Calantha's voice was hard. "The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." They glared at each other. Two souls in the wrong skins, years of hatred between them and a curse binding them together. Finally, Gunnar intervened. "Both of you stop. This isn't about who has power now. This is about survival. And I've found something you both need to hear." He pulled out a scroll, old, yellowed with age. The seal on it bore the mark of House Valente, but the wax was cracked, the paper brittle. "I found this in the royal archives," Gunnar said. "Buried deep, hidden deliberately. It's a birth record, from 19 years ago." Calantha's breath caught. "My age." "Our age," Zanna corrected automatically, then froze. "What?" Gunnar unrolled the scroll, carefully. "On the night of the autumn equinox 19 years ago, Queen Isolde Valente gave birth. The labor was long, difficult, dangerous, and when it was over, he looked up. She delivered twins." The word hit like a physical blow. "No," Zanna whispered. "2 daughters," Gunnar continued. "The first an alpha. Strong, healthy, perfect. They named her Zanna." Calantha's hands trembled. "And the second? An omega. Weak. Small. Considered defective." Gunnar's voice hardened. "They didn't name her. Instead, they separated her from her sister, suppressed her wolf with dark magic, and gave her to the servants to raise, with a story about an orphanage that never existed." "Calantha," Zanna breathed. "They gave her the name Calantha." "Your sisters," Gunnar said. "Twins, born minutes apart, separated because one of you didn't meet their standards." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Calantha spoke first, her voice shaking. "All this time, all these years, you were my sister." "No." Zanna shook her head violently. "No, that's not possible. I would have known. I would have felt something." "Would you?" Calantha's voice rose. "Or were you too busy treating me like dirt to notice we have the same bone structure? The same eyes? The same." She gestured helplessly at their swapped faces. "We look alike. We always did. But no one ever saw it because no one looks at servants long enough to notice." Zanna stumbled backward, hitting the wall. Her mind raced, trying to reject it, but the pieces fit too perfectly. The way her parents had always kept Calantha close, but distant. The way her mother sometimes looked at the servant girl with something that might have been guilt. The way her father avoided her entirely. "The curse," Gunnar said. "It triggered when you fell together. When blood touched blood. When the twins finally came into contact with violence between them." "Blood turns upon blood," Calantha whispered. "That's what the prophecy said, wasn't it? In the crypt." Gunnar nodded. "There's more. The prophecy speaks of twins who will either save or destroy the kingdom. Divided, they're powerless. United, they can reshape the world. But one must fall for the other to rise," Zanna finished. The words came from somewhere deep in her memory. A story her grandmother had told her once, about a curse on their bloodline. She'd thought it was just a fairy tale. Yes. Gunnar set down the scroll. This curse, this body swap, isn't random. It's the prophecy fulfilling itself. Blood turned upon blood. The cruel sister forced to live as the victim. The victim forced to live as the abuser. Until you both learn what you need to learn. Learn what? Xanda's voice cracked. What lesson requires this torture? Empathy, Calantha said softly. Understanding. You needed to feel what you inflicted. And I needed to, she trailed off. Needed to what? Xanda pressed. To understand power. Choice. What it means to have the ability to be cruel and choose not to be. Calantha met her eyes. We're two halves of the same coin. You had power and wielded it terribly. I had nothing and endured it. Now we've traded places. And how does this end? Xanda asked. The prophecy says one must fall for the other to rise. Does that mean one of us has to die? Gunnar's expression was grim. I don't know. The prophecy is vague. But if I had to guess, I'd say it means one of you has to sacrifice something. Pride, maybe. Or vengeance. Or the old version of yourself. Or our lives, Xanda said flatly. Possibly. They sat with that truth. Heavy, dark, inescapable. Finally, Calantha spoke. We're sisters. Twins. And our parents ripped us apart because I wasn't good enough. Because they're monsters, Xanda said, surprising herself. I always knew they were cold. Calculating. But this, she looked at Calantha, at her own face, wearing an expression she'd never seen in the mirror. Vulnerability. They did this to you. To us. And I spent 19 years continuing their cruelty without even knowing. Yes. Calantha's voice was steady. You did. I can't take it back. No. You can't. Can you forgive me? The question hung in the air. Calantha stared at her sister, her twin, her other half, the woman who'd made her life a living hell. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe one day, if we survive this, if you truly change. She leaned forward. But right now, we need to focus on breaking the curse, on surviving, on figuring out which of us is destined to fall. What if we both refuse? Xanda asked. What if we find another way? Is there another way? Calantha looked at Gunnar. I don't know, he admitted, but I'm going to find out. I'm sending MES Sylvies to scholars, healers, anyone who might know about bloodline curses and ancient magic. Someone must know how to break this. And in the meantime, Xanda asked, in the meantime, you keep pretending. Gunnar moved to the door. Both of you, play your parts, learn your lessons, and pray we find answers before someone realizes the princess and the Omega aren't who they appear to be. He left, taking the scroll with him, leaving the sisters alone. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two halves of a whole, torn apart at birth, forced together by catastrophe. I have so many questions, Calantha said finally. So do I. Do you remember anything? From when we were babies? Xanda shook her head. Nothing. Do you? No. Just sometimes I'd have dreams. Of not being alone. Of warmth. Safety. Someone beside me. Calantha's voice broke. I thought they were just fantasies. But maybe they were memories. Of you. Tears stung Xanda's eyes. This body's eyes, prone to emotion in ways her old body never was. I used to have nightmares. Of something missing. A hole where something should have been. I always thought it was because I wasn't good enough for my parents. But maybe it was me, Calantha finished. Maybe we felt each other's absence without knowing why. They sat in silence, mourning the childhood they should have had. The sisterhood stolen from them. The years of cruelty that never should have happened. I'm sorry, Xanda said finally. For everything. For not seeing. For not questioning. For being exactly what they raised me to be. I know. Calantha stood. But sorry doesn't erase years of pain. Sorry doesn't give me back my dignity, my wolf, my life. What can I do to make it right? I don't know if you can. Calantha moved to the door, but maybe start by surviving in my shoes. Feel what I felt, live what I lived, and then if we both make it through this, maybe we can talk about forgiveness. She left her borrowed body, moving with grace that was slowly becoming natural. Xanna sat alone in the small room and let herself cry, really cry, for the first time since she was a child. She cried for the sister she'd never known, for the childhood they'd been robbed of, for the years of cruelty she couldn't take back, for the curse binding them, for the prophecy looming over them, and for the terrifying realization that maybe, just maybe, she deserved everything that was happening to her. Maybe this was justice. Maybe this was karma. Maybe this was exactly what the universe had always meant to teach her. And maybe learning it was going to destroy them both. Chapter 7. The Separation. 2 weeks. That's how long it took before King Aldrich made his announcement. The Southern Alpha will be returning home, he declared during the evening meal, his voice carrying across the grand dining hall. And my daughter will accompany him to finalize the wedding arrangements and begin the process of uniting our kingdoms. Calantha's blood ran cold. Leave, go to the Southern Kingdom, away from the castle, away from the resources they needed to break the curse, away from Xanna? She forced herself to smile. Xanna's practiced perfect smile. Of course, father. When do we depart? 3 days hence. Aldrich's ice-blue eyes, so like the ones Calantha now wore, studied her. Unless you're still too fragile from the accident. It was a test. She heard it in his tone. He wanted to see if his daughter had gone soft. I've fully recovered, Calantha said firmly, and I'm eager to see Lord Gunnar's kingdom. Across the table, Gunnar's expression remained neutral, but his amber eyes held questions. They hadn't discussed this. He was clearly as surprised as she was. Beside Aldrich, Queen Isolde smiled, cold, calculated. Wonderful. And we've also made arrangements regarding the incident with the Northern Kingdom. Calantha's stomach dropped. What arrangements? King Thaddeus Ashenheart has sent Emmy Sylvie, Isolde continued. He was insulted that the trade agreement we'd promised fell through. To make amends, we're sending him a gift. No. No. What kind of gift? Calantha asked, though she already knew. Already felt the trap closing. A servant, Aldrich said casually as if discussing cattle. As a gesture of goodwill. He's requested someone to serve his household. Lysandra leaned forward, her violet eyes glittering. And since we need to show we're not sending him garbage, we're sending someone who is close to the princess. Someone who understands noble standards. Her smile was poison. I suggested the little Omega, the one who caused the accident. It seems fitting. Calantha's grip on her wine glass tightened until her knuckles went white. They were sending Xanna, in Calantha's body, to the Northern Kingdom, to Thaddeus Ashenheart, the cruel alpha, the one known for brutality. How efficient, Calantha managed, her voice strangled. Isn't it? Isolde's smile didn't reach her eyes. She leaves tomorrow morning. Best to send her quickly, before King Thaddeus changes his mind. Tomorrow. Not 3 days. Tomorrow. Calantha's mind raced. She looked at Gunnar, saw the same horror in his eyes. They both knew what this meant. Xanna, unprepared, untrained, still struggling to act like a servant, would be sent to the most dangerous alpha in all 4 kingdoms. And Calantha would be taken south, too far away to help, to find answers, to break the curse. The prophecy echoed in her mind. One must fall for the other to rise. Was this it? Was this how it ended? Calantha searched desperately for an excuse, a reason to stop this. Is it wise to send her so quickly? She's still recovering from the fall. She's a servant, Aldrich said dismissively. Servants recover or they don't. Either way, she serves her purpose. The casual cruelty, the same cruelty Xantha had wielded for years, now directed at her. Calantha wanted to scream, wanted to tell them all the truth, wanted to tear down this whole rotten system. But the curse held her tongue. Of course, father, she said quietly. Whatever you think is best. Under the table, Gunnar's hand found hers. A brief squeeze. We'll figure this out, it said. We have to. But looking at the satisfied expressions around the table, Lysandra's triumph, her parents' calculated indifference, the noble's casual approval of sending a woman to a known monster, Calantha didn't see how. The universe was separating them, forcing them apart, just as they'd begun to understand each other, and one of them was being sent to her death. After dinner, Calantha fled to her chambers. She'd barely closed the door before Gunnar materialized from the hidden pausilvi he'd been using to meet with her privately. This is a disaster, he said without preamble. I can't let her go to him. You know Ashenheart's reputation. He'll destroy her. He'll break her, Gunnar agreed. Which might be exactly what your parents want. Maybe they suspect something. Maybe they're testing to see if Xantha will defend the Omega too strongly. Calantha paced, this tall body moving with agitation. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe this is exactly what they'd do regardless. Probably both. Gunnar moved to the window. But there's another problem. If she goes north and you go south, you'll be separated. No way to communicate. No way to work together on breaking the curse. And no way to protect each other when it breaks. Calantha stopped pacing. The prophecy says one must fall. What if separation is what triggers it? What if distance is what kills one of us? Then we don't let you separate. How? I can't refuse to go south. That would be too suspicious. And I can't stop them from sending her north without revealing. She gestured helplessly at herself. All of this. No, but I can delay it. Gunnar's eyes held a calculating gleam. I'm a visiting alpha, a potential ally. If I express concerns about the timing, about wanting you to be fully prepared before we travel, Aldrich might listen. Or he might wonder why you care. Let him wonder. I'll say it's about wanting my future wife to be at her best, not distracted by kingdom business. Gunnar moved toward the door. And in the meantime, you need to talk to your sister. Tonight. Warn her. Prepare her for what's coming if we can't stop it. She won't survive him, Gunnar. Not as she is now. Then she'll have to learn fast. His voice was hard. Or she'll have to remember what you survived for years and find that same strength. After he left, Calantha stood alone in the opulent chamber and felt the walls closing in. Tomorrow. They were taking Xantha tomorrow. In the servants' quarters, Xantha was hauling water when Mistress Greta appeared. You, Omega, put that down. The old housekeeper's expression was unreadable. You're wanted in the loading area. Gather your things. Xantha set down the bucket, her scarred hands trembling. Loading area? Why? You're being sent away, to the northern kingdom, as a gift to King Ashenheart. The world tilted. What? You heard me. You leave at dawn. Be grateful. Service to a king, even a brutal one, is better than scrubbing pots the rest of your life. Greta's voice softened slightly. Though between you and me, girl, I'd run if I were you. Run where? Xantha heard herself ask. Anywhere. The Northern King is not kind, especially not to Omegas. Greta looked away. But you won't run. None of you ever do. Too beaten down to even try. She left, and Xantha stood frozen in the corridor. The Northern Kingdom. Thaddeus Ashenheart. She knew the name, knew the reputation. Brutal, cruel, vengeful. He'd lost his mate and family to her kingdom's betrayal and had spent years becoming a monster in response. And they were sending her to him. In this weak body, with this suppressed wolf, with no power, no status, no protection. For the first time since the switch, Xana understood true terror. This was how Calantha had lived. Every day, every moment. This helplessness. This certainty that someone bigger, stronger, more powerful could destroy you and no one would care. Xana's legs gave out. She sank to the floor in the empty corridor and finally understood why Calantha's eyes had always looked so haunted. Because this was what it meant to be powerless. And there was no escape. A soft sound made her look up. Calantha stood at the corridor's end, wearing Xana's face, moving with Xana's grace. But her eyes, those ice blue eyes, held something Xana had never seen in a mirror. Compassion. You heard, Calantha said quietly. They're sending me to him. Xana's voice cracked. To the monster. I know. I won't survive. You know I won't. I don't know how to be. She gestured at this weak body. This. I don't know how to submit. How to endure. How to survive when every day is pain and no one cares if you live or die. Calantha's voice was soft but edged with steel. Now you understand. Are you enjoying this? Xana's question came out bitter. Watching me suffer what I made you suffer. Calantha was quiet for a long moment. Then she moved closer, crouching down to Xana's level. No, I'm not enjoying this. Because despite everything, despite years of cruelty, you're my sister, my twin, and I don't want to watch you die. Then stop them. Use your power. You're the princess now. Command them not to send me. I can't. Calantha's frustration bled through. If I protect you too obviously, they'll suspect. Lysandra already watches me like a hawk. One wrong move and we're both discovered. And then we're both dead. So what do I do? Desperation made Xana's voice small. How do I survive him? The same way I survived you. Calantha's eyes held hers. You endure. You bend but don't break. You find the small moments of humanity and cling to them. And you remember that surviving isn't the same as living, but sometimes surviving is enough. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are, because you're me. We're the same blood, the same bone. If I could survive years of what you inflicted, you can survive this. Xana wanted to argue, wanted to say it was different, that she wasn't built for this. But looking at Calantha, at her own face, showing more strength than she'd ever possessed, she couldn't. There's something else, Calantha said quietly. Gunnar is trying to delay your departure, and I'm going to do something that might buy us time. What? I'm going to pretend to be sick. A relapse from the accident. Not so sick they'll cancel my departure, but sick enough that they'll want to wait a few days to stabilize me. That might delay your transport too. They won't want to send you while the princess is concerned about properly saying goodbye to her servants. That's thin. It's all we have. Calantha stood. But listen to me. If this doesn't work, if you end up going north anyway, you need to remember something. What? Thaddeus Ashenheart is cruel, brutal, everything you were and worse. But he wasn't always that way. He became a monster because of pain, because of loss, because people hurt him until he decided to hurt them first. How does that help me? Because maybe, just maybe, if you can find the person he used to be beneath the monster, if you can show him genuine humanity instead of performing servitude, he might not destroy you. Calantha's voice was intense. You made me into a survivor by being cruel. Maybe you can survive him by being kind. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. And if that doesn't work, Xana asked, then you do what I did for years. You survive one day at a time, one moment at a time, until we find a way to break this curse and bring you home. Calantha left, and Xana sat alone in the corridor, her mind churning. Tomorrow morning, dawn, they'd come for her, and she'd be taken north to a brutal alpha who'd break her the way she'd broken Calantha. Justice, karma, the universe's twisted sense of balance. She should hate Calantha for not stopping this, for not using her new power to protect her twin. But she couldn't, because she finally understood. This was what she'd done. This helplessness, this terror, this certainty of pain with no escape. And maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. In the princess's chambers, Calantha stood at the window, watching the moon rise over the castle, and felt her heart breaking. Tomorrow they'd take her sister, her twin, the other half of herself she'd only just found, and Calantha would go south, playing the role of princess, marrying an alpha she didn't love, while Xandha went north to a fate that might kill her. The prophecy haunted her. One must fall for the other to rise. Was this it? Was this the choice? Send Xandha to her probable death, so Calantha could live safely in the south? Or refuse, reveal the truth, and doom them both? There was no good answer, no right choice, only survival, and sacrifice, and the desperate hope that somehow, impossibly, they'd both make it through. Behind her, the door opened. Gunnar entered, his expression grim. "I tried," he said. "Aldrich refused to delay. Says the Northern King is already expecting the gift, and any delay would be an insult." Calantha closed her eyes. So she goes. So she goes. Gunnar moved to stand beside her. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted." "What I want doesn't matter." Calantha's voice was hollow. "It never has. It matters to me." She looked at him, this man who'd shown her kindness when no one else had, who'd believed her when belief was impossible, who'd risked his own position to help two women trapped in a nightmare. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care what happens to us?" Gunnar was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've seen what cruelty does. To kingdoms. To people. And I've seen what kindness can do too, even in the smallest doses." He met her eyes. "You showed me that. Both of you in different ways. She showed me what happens when power corrupts completely. You showed me that even in the darkest circumstances, humanity survives." Pretty words. But Calantha's voice softened. "Thank you. For trying. For believing us. For not treating this like madness." "It is madness, but that doesn't make it less real." Gunnar moved toward the door, then paused. "When we go south, I'll keep searching for answers, for ways to break bloodline curses, and I'll send MES Sylvies north to contacts I have in Ashenheart's kingdom, people who can keep watch over her, make sure she's alive." Calantha finished. "Surviving," he corrected, "which sometimes is the best we can hope for." After he left, Calantha remained at the window until dawn began to paint the sky in shades of blood and gold. In the courtyard below, she watched them load a cart, watched guards escort a small figure in a brown servant's dress, watched Xandha, proud, cruel Xandha, now reduced to this, climb into the cart with the jerky movements of someone still not used to this body's limitations. For just a moment, Xandha looked up, met Calantha's eyes across the distance, and in that moment, something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the bond of twins torn apart at birth, reunited by catastrophe, separated again by fate. Survive, Calantha thought desperately. Asterisk, please. Just survive. Asterisk. The cart began to move. North. Toward the Dark Kingdom. Toward the cruel Alpha. Toward a fate that might fulfill the prophecy, or might destroy them both. Calantha watched until the cart disappeared beyond the castle gates. Then she turned from the window, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to play the princess for a journey south. Two kingdoms, two alphas, two sisters living lies, and somewhere, woven into the fabric of fate itself, a prophecy counting down to the moment when one would fall so the other could rise. The only question was which one, and whether they'd find a way to cheat destiny before it was too late. End of Part 1. In the north, Xandha travels toward her reckoning, toward the brutal Alpha who will teach her what her own cruelty felt like, toward pain she inflicted but never understood, toward the possibility of redemption or destruction. In the south, Calantha moves toward a different fate, toward a kind alpha who sees her more clearly than she wants, toward power she never asked for and doesn't know how to wield, toward the question of who she'll become when survival requires cruelty. Two sisters, two journeys, two different kinds of hell. And when they meet again, if they meet again, nothing will be the same. The prophecy has spoken. The curse has bound them. Now comes the price. Part 2 awaits, where love blooms in blood-soaked soil, where cruelty learns compassion, where the truth will cost everything, and where one sister will die so the other can finally live. If you have stayed to this point, please support this channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing.